Yeah, I mean, with Intel, I mean, the company has long struggled. That is not a secret. And it seems like the US government, specifically President Trump, is interested in the company having a stake in it. It kind of reminds me of when the banks were perhaps going to fail a long time ago and the US government stepped in to help. So you see a little flavor of that, but it is so unusual for the government to take any kind of stake in a company. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. Does the U.S. government really want to have a stake in a chip company? Whether the chip company is doing well or doing poorly, it's extremely unusual.
Rachel, so I last remember our Bloomberg News reporting saying that this would be a non-voting stake, but I'm curious, what are the implications here with the government having a stake in Intel, and what does that mean in terms of whether or not this could happen for other companies down the road?
I think it definitely raises some interesting questions about, well, what could happen with other companies in the technology industry? I mean, tech is a huge industry in the US, and it is often either privately owned or it's publicly traded, but it is certainly not something that the government has a big controlling stake in or even a minor stake in. I think it definitely raises questions about what happens with some of the other players in the industry. There are only a handful of chip companies that are really key players. NVIDIA obviously is one of them, and it is going to be interesting to see how this dynamic plays out if the U.S. government has a stake in Intel, but NVIDIA is by far the market leader, and we know that it could take years, perhaps a decade, for someone to even possibly catch up. That would be like a newcomer. But could the U.S.'s stake in Intel help propel it along, and what does that mean for market dynamics? I think that's going to be interesting to watch play out.
Yeah, market dynamics. I'm glad you brought up market dynamics because I can't stop thinking about the government picking winners and losers here. And if you are a tech company, or maybe you're a critical minerals company, or maybe you're a mining company, and you haven't yet received money from the government, what does it mean for your own outlook?
Absolutely. No, that I think we have a lot of questions there, right, about what could happen there. What does it mean? It's certainly unusual to say the very least. And I could see, I'm trying to avoid projecting how people might feel about this, but you could imagine that some companies might feel really uncomfortable about this.
Yeah, our headline says Intel has agreed to give the U.S. a 10% equity stake. We should note that it was only a few weeks ago, Nora, when Intel CEO Lip Bhutan was the target of President Trump's ire on social media.
Absolutely.
Where he essentially said, this is a guy who's conflicted and should step down.
Right. And we were seeing so much discussion around that. So it's interesting, now that we're witnessing these latest developments. But I'm curious, of course, it's not uncommon necessarily for, the government to have a certain relationship with companies. If you think about defense contractors, right? They have contracts with the U.S. government here, but we're talking about the U.S. government taking a 10% stake in one of these chip maker firms, which is really in focus as of late. My curiosity is, as you're speaking to people, is there any sort of concern about this being a sense of preferential treatment, maybe?
I'm not sure if there's like a sense of that just yet. I do think that it's something that people will probably have a lot of thoughts on next week. Honestly, I mean, we're at the end of the week now, and also it's a lot of people are still kind of out at the end of the summer. So I think it's something we're going to have to watch unfold over the coming weeks and get a sense of what happens next. Also, it's not really clear what this stake means beyond ownership. Like, what does this mean as far as, is the U.S. going to be like an activist investor?
Yeah.
It's really unclear, and we don't really have any precedent here,
right.
So it's hard to know.
Way more questions than answers. Hey, you got a great story on Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. We're going to get to that in a second. Before that, though, Apple is exploring using Google's Gemini AI to power a revamped Siri. Mark Gurman has really covered the woes that Apple has faced when it comes to being perceived and indeed being behind when it comes to AI. What would Apple do with Google Gemini? I mean, this is a strange bedfellows, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, Gemini is a really powerful AI system, and it could perhaps help Apple integrate more powerful AI features into its products. I think what the company has always kind of struggled with as it decides, should we build AI in-house, should we partner with companies outside? Apple has always been so focused on customer security and privacy, and I think they're very wary of doing anything that might in any way even potentially give a hint of compromising that. So that has led the company to do a lot of things on its own. It likes to keep things on device as much as possible. So it's a tricky balancing act for them. At the same time, they feel a lot of pressure to enhance their products, specifically the iPhone, with more AI-forward features, as it sees other companies doing the same thing and getting lots and lots of traction from customers.
You know, it reminds me, like, it's kind of crazy for us to think that Apple could be teaming up with Google in any way. Google makes the operating system, Android, that is the biggest competitor to Apple around the world. The fact that they're doing this, or even exploring this, Nora, is kind of nuts, given that these two companies are seen as huge competitors when it comes to mobile operating systems.
And even on a super personal level, right? I feel like there's always this beef between Apple users versus Android users. So it's really interesting to see this collaboration here.
Okay, speaking of beef, I remember a time when there was some beef between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg.
Absolutely.
They were going to go into a cage and do a fight. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, I had forgotten about that.
What does it say about me that when I read a story about Elon Musk actually trying to enlist Mark Zuckerberg for an unsolicited bid to buy OpenAI, that you report that I just think of the personal dynamics between the two of them? What can you tell us about what your reporting found, Rachel?
Okay, so first we have to set the scene. OpenAI, Elon Musk. Elon Musk was one of the many founders of OpenAI about 10 years ago. He long ago left his connections with the company behind. He has a rival company, XAI. He has, over this past year-ish, been locked in a legal skirmish with the company. He's filed lawsuits against it, trying to stop it from changing its structure into more of a for-profit company. So he is unhappy with what OpenAI is doing. He earlier this year offered, he had an unsolicited bid that he wanted the company to consider. It included a raft of potential investors, some of whom were named, and he sent this to OpenAI. OpenAI's board rejected it. This was in February. Fast forward to yesterday, there was a court filing jointly from OpenAI and from Meta, and it was basically asking the judge to help them sort out a couple things. OpenAI revealed in it that Musk had approached Mark Zuckerberg and asked if he and or Meta would be interested in helping finance that unsolicited bid. And Zuckerberg, apparently, he didn't sign any letter of intent related to this. He did not agree to this. Meta did not agree to this. However, OpenAI wants Meta to turn over any information related to this. And Meta's like, you need to go like figure this out on your own. So OpenAI is saying, Judge, tell Meta to give us information related to this. And Meta says, Judge, tell them to get lost, basically.
Rachel, is this over? Should we expect anything else? Does he want it? Will there be another bid?
It ain't over till it's over.
Okay.
No, I mean,
classic
like,
saying.
I feel like it's never over, at least in this, with like these parties. It seems like it just keeps going. Did you say, should we expect, you mean Elon Musk to make another bid for OpenAI? I don't know if that would happen. I mean, like, the first one was so quickly rejected and put down on social media by Sam Altman, and then also like OpenAI's board like formally rejected it outright. And it would surprise me if there was like another bid. Also, I don't know how you could afford the company at this point. But hey, you never know what's going to happen with these companies.
There was the Anthropic, the reporting from our team yesterday about Anthropic nearing a deal to raise as much as $10 billion in a new round of funding.
Yeah.
This is so much money.
Yeah.
When is this going to stop? What does it say about the appetite? Where's this money coming from?
Man, I ask myself this question all the time. Like, where does the money come from at a certain point? Who has this kind of money, or how do you gather this kind of money? And I wish I had a great answer. I really am not sure. these rounds keep getting bigger and bigger. We're seeing companies consider money from a wide range of sources beyond the U.S., Saudi, like Middle Eastern sovereign funds. That I think is increasingly attractive to these companies. But like then I wonder, well, beyond that, where do you go? Where do you get money at a certain point? If you're getting beyond billions, tens of billions of dollars, if you're going beyond that, I'm not sure where it comes from at a certain point.
Yeah.